There we go.
All right. Hello, Beady friends. Welcome to class today. My name is Meredith Roddy, and I work for Beadalon and Artistic Wire. And today we are going to be making some fun, fringy earrings. And I love that Finn knows exactly when class is starting. You can see his tail wagging over my shoulder there. He's literally been sleeping for the entire day. And as soon as I start with Hi Beauty Friends, he's up and at 'em and ready to go for his cameo. So Finn is with me today as my helper to make some fun, fringy earrings. So welcome. This is an online class for the Michaels Community Classroom, and it is being recorded as well. So if there's something that I go over a little bit too quickly, or you want to watch over and over again to make sure you get it just perfectly right. In about 24 to 48 hours, the class will be posted on the Michaels Community Classroom YouTube channel. Well, it's on the Michaels YouTube channel under the Community Classroom section. Additionally, Yvette from Beadalon is here in the chat room, and she will be answering any questions that you have. So again, if there's something that I go over too quickly, or if something isn't quite clear, go ahead and write that comment in the chat, and I will see it and address it, or she will be able to address it on the side. She's also going to post the instructions and materials. And luckily there are only 4 instructions here in this project, and it's very repetitive. So I'm going to do the steps a couple of different times, and I think by the end of it, it'll be no problem at all. Do you want to go underneath, Finn? Is that what you're trying to say? Finn does like hanging out underneath the desk. He keeps my feet warm while I'm teaching. He knows that that's what I like. Okay, so it looks like people are having clear sound. A couple of people might be having static. You might need to relog in to see if those issues go away. You also want to make sure that your view is the speaker view. So you're not seeing all of the other people who are participating in class, but you're just focusing on me. So I think that is all of the initial information that I have to bestow upon everybody today. And I think let's just get right down to it. Let's come down to the bead mat, and I can show you the materials that we are going to be using today to make our fringy earrings. So you can see here, I have a couple of different examples, and I will bring each one up to the camera. But as we are getting started, I want to just kind of let people know that this is one way of making these earrings. So I'm sure that if you're on Pinterest or out in the world of looking at jewelry and jewelry making things, you've seen different styles of fringe earrings and different materials that they are made with. So I just want to kind of do a little show and tell before we get started. This was the original design that I made when I was kind of playing around with how I wanted this to look. Now you will see sometimes the design is very specific, right? So maybe we see them that have what's the word I'm looking for? A triangle pattern here. I like more of a kind of a blended pattern where you can see it's not really specific where the colors kind of blend from one into the other. I also played around a little bit with the length of my fringes. So you can see on this one and on this one, the fringes on here are 3 colors. The fringes in this are 2 colors, and the fringes over here are a little bit longer. So I'm showing all of these examples just to kind of drive home the point that I'm going to show you the technique for how I like to make these, but feel free to play around with length, with colors, with different materials even with which to make these earrings. However, today what we are going to be doing is we are going to be using bead stringing wire. So we're not using thread and a needle to sew our fringe like in other classes that I and other makers for the Michaels Community Classroom have been making, but instead we're actually going to do this with wire. Now, one of the things that we drive home a lot at Beadalon is using the right wire for the job. And you might think when you go into Michaels or into or online at michaels.com or another beading purveyor that why are there so many different kinds of wire? Why are there so many different strands? Why are there so many different diameters? Why are there so many different colors of wire? Well, this is one of those projects that really demonstrates why a thinner diameter of wire is the right diameter for the job. And today we're using a 0.012 wire, which is a very, very thin wire. You can see right here how thin it is. And we are using actually the bright color, which is really a stainless steel color, because as you can see on my example here, that wire really disappears into this beautiful antiqued ring. I had originally, because I do tend to gravitate toward the silver color wire when I'm working. I did this example with the silver color and I like it, especially because I have the silver color beads here and of course, my silver color crimp tubes. But when I made up this example and I realized that in fact, the bright color is the right color to blend in with this ring, that's why I decided to teach with the bright color today. So again, just all of these different things to think about. What this 012 is also going to do is to allow for our fringes to be a little drapier. So if you wanted to use a thicker wire, say you had an 015 or an 018, that would be just fine. And if you've taken classes with me before, you know I like to talk about substituting materials and trying kind of using maybe what you have on hand to see if you can't maybe do a little zhuzh this way or another way. So this is the wire that we are going to be using today, a nice 012 wire, nice thin wire in the bright color. So other materials that we're going to be using today. I can never remind people or enough times or too many times that right on our spools of wire, right on the Beadalon spools of wire, it tells you what crimp bead number to use and what crimp tube number to use. And I'm seeing some familiar names, so I know that people who are watching know that I tend to prefer crimp tubes, but you can use crimp beads for this project as well. Now I'm using the #1 crimp tubes. And before we went on air today, I was saying that everything I'm doing today is very small. Sometimes in classes, what I do is very big. Today is a project where all of our materials are very small. We're using very thin wire. We're using very small crimp beads. We're using size 11 seed beads. So we're going to have some challenges with perhaps getting things as close and as focused as we possibly can, but I think we're going to be just fine. So that's another thing that we're going to be using today is the crimp tubes, and I'm using those in the size 1 from the crimp tube variety pack. And even though unfortunately the sticker is a little, it's covering up a little bit, but it does tell me on these crimp tubes that I want to use the micro crimper for that. And so that is the tool that, or one of the tools I should say, that I'm going to be using today is this micro crimper. And the micro crimper is the same as the regular crimp tool, of course. Let's see, what do I have here? Oh, I have a mighty one. This will actually be really good to be able to see the differences. It does still have that notched back jaw and that smooth forward jaw. It's just, oh, sorry about that, guys. It's just really, really small. But again, we're going small today. You know, why not? Why not give ourselves a challenge of going small? All right, so those are the materials and the tools that we'll need. Of course, we'll need a couple of chain nose pliers because we always need chain nose pliers when we're doing it. are also going to need some seed beads, right? So let's get to the fun part. Everybody wants to talk about what are the fun things. So I chose today this color palette. So I had already made so many with the turquoise, rose gold, and silver, and I'm feeling it's going to be a high of about 80 today in southeastern Pennsylvania. So I already have visions of summer, and I thought that this was a really nice summer palette. These are the size 11 seed beads from John Bead in the, I guess you know them by the purple label. Everything is coordinated and color coordinated very well. So here we have the turquoise, the turquoise color. I think it's turquoise green. Yes, it is turquoise green because I'm looking at it right there. And then also orange, right? Bold color choice for me. I'm generally not an orange person, but I don't know, something about this color palette just spoke with me today. And then these are silver metallic. Okay, so those are the seed beads that I'm using. And then this ring is actually this guy right here. So it's a silver plated round ring, 32 millimeters. And this is the part number right here. And I believe that that part number is also, actually, that part number is not in the instructions for the class. The part number for this ring is in the instructions for the class. But really, you can use any ring that you want. You could even use a triangle or a square or something in glass or crystal. The technique that we are going to be learning today will be the same. Okay, and this comes, it's kind of stacked like this with seven pieces. And I think I have used all but one, or I guess all but two, for my projects, or for my examples. All right, so let's see. Let's get started, right? So I already have made up many of the fringes because I don't think that we really need to watch me stringing up seed beads for the next 2 hours. And this is a project that takes a little while. And we are stringing up size 11 seed beads, and depending on how many you want to use and how long you want your earrings to be, it might take a little while, but it's not a difficult project. So it's the type of thing that would be great to put your beading tray on your lap while you are watching a TV program or listening to an audiobook or having a cup of coffee with a friend. Any of those things would be good. So my first step is I am going to take my wire that always comes with a clip on it. And generally I like to work from the spool, but in this case, I'm not going to be working for the spool. So I'm going to pull out a little bit of wire, and I'm going to use my measuring device down here and snip about a little over 4 inches, a generous 4 inches, because you don't want to be fiddling too much. We're challenging ourselves enough with this project with working with smaller materials. So the last thing you want to do is cut your wire too thin. The price per inch or per foot of the beading wire is so negligible that it's better not to make it more difficult for yourself. And one of the themes that I extol in classes, on Facebook Lives, is give yourself a little bit of extra stringing material to work with. You'll always be happier with more stringing material than you will with less. So bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to move some of these examples out of frame so that we can work on our focus a little bit, try to get a nice clear focus where we need to see rather than on our background. So I think that is probably good enough. And what I like to do is make little piles of seed beads in my pattern color. So whether I'm doing bead weaving, whether I'm doing gosh, any stitching, really any stringing, I like to kind of lay out as in order that I'm going to be picking up. So I've done that, and I think we're going to be good on focus now. We'll see. Okay, so first step is I picked up one of those little teeny tiny crimp tubes, right? I told you we're going small. Sometimes we go big or go home. Today we're going small. We're going teeny tiny, or I don't know what the equivalent would be. We're not going home though. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over my ring, and I am going to see, and you can see how kind of fiddly it can possibly get with all of this smallness going on, but I'm going to double back my beading wire through that crimp tube. Okay, so now this is where the fun part happens, because what I need to do is I need to tighten up that crimp tube so it's against the ring with a little bit of wiggle room. Of course, we always put a little bit of wiggle room into everything. So the way I do this is I switch my hands, because I want my dominant hand to be doing the crimping. I don't have a great big tail here. Okay, I try to keep this tail about, oh, I don't know, what would you say that is? About a centimeter, a little more than a centimeter. And if you watched my 5 things that you should never do while making beaded jewelry, you know that you always want to put a little bit of wiggle room in here. So I'm holding it in place with my thumbnail. I am trying to make sure that everything stays in focus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with my micro crimper, right? Because I'm using size 1 crimp tubes, and those calibrate with a micro crimper. Now, this is not the easiest crimp that you will ever crimp in your entire life. I will be very honest about that. But the crimping technique is exactly the same. So we're going to come in here, and I always like to start my crimping in the front because it makes a nice oval shape. Oftentimes when you see crimping, people tend to start in the back. Just trying to get a little shot there of the back. But you actually want to start in the front to make a nice oval shape, because what that allows is the wire to more easily lay side by side, because you don't want that wire crossing inside the crimp. So now I'm going to come back to the back notch. And again, I was up front. Things are small. Things are very small here on our class for today. But, you know, why not? There's no reason to, if you know the skills, if you know the steps, and if you practice a little bit, there's no reason that you can't go small. You just have to make sure that you get your readers out or your magnifiers. I think I need to go up on my number for my magnification soon. All right, so now I'm coming back into the front, and let's get a nice angle there. And I always round this out. There's always the temptation when you are crimping, whether you're using the micro crimper, the mighty crimper, or the standard crimper, there's always a temptation to come in here and flatten it with your front jaw. Do not do that. All that does is break the crimp and damage the wire. So with all of that said, I will say that most of our rules and recommendations for crimping are based on the idea that you're going to be making a bracelet or a necklace. So as I'm coming in here, I'm just going to snip the short end so that this is flush. Now, because there is not a lot of what is the word that I'm looking for? A lot of stress on this design. There's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of potential for it being pulled. If you are challenged with the micro crimping tool, and I will deny ever having said this, but just between us students today, I will allow the flattening of a crimp. Okay. I don't generally do it, but for today, I would rather have somebody make the design and flatten the crimp, because if you do it and you don't smush it so hard that you're going to really break the wire, you really should be okay in this situation. Okay, so I probably shouldn't have said that. Yvette, don't hold your ears. I should have said that before. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on with my pattern. Well, I've already done my pattern, so what would I be doing if I were just starting from scratch? Well, for this, honestly, what I did is I took an earring that I already liked the length of. And like I said, I kind of played around a little bit with my dimensions and my I'm really at a loss for my words today. Oh my goodness. And I had a big cup of coffee before class started. And the different proportions of colors. But this one that I have done, I'm just going to measure it down here, is 2 inches of beads. Okay. And Sandy, I am not using wire guardians for 2 different reasons. I know I'm being recorded. I'm being a little bit silly. But there are 2 different reasons why I am not using wire guardians on this. Actually, 3 different reasons. First of all, because these are going to be earrings, I want to be cognizant of how heavy they're going to be. The second reason is because the wire guardian actually won't fit over this particular ring. If I were doing it over a much thinner ring, sure, a wire guardian might look nice, but I'm almost positive, if memory serves, I did try it with a wire guardian and I didn't like how it looked. So you might like how it looks, Sandy, and I definitely recommend, if you think that wire guardians is your personal style, definitely try it out. See what happens. See if you like it. And if you like it, go for it. There's no reason why you shouldn't use wire guardians. So I said that my fringes are about 2 inches. So from that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up these size 11 seed beads. And the way that I'm picking them up, as you can see, I have them down on my beading mat and I'm just spearing them with the wire. I think that people get intimidated by beads that are so small because you think that you have to pick them up and somehow, see, this guy isn't even cooperating, somehow get them on to the wire with your fingers. I very rarely, if ever, will do that. I have a nice Velux bead mat here that are of course available at Michael's. And I just pierce my beads. Now, what a wire guardian is, and I do apologize, sometimes I take for granted that we all know the nomenclature. A wire guardian is a little horseshoe shaped piece of wire that goes around your beading wire to give it a little bit more strength and a little bit more abrasion resistance at the clasp. This is what they look like. That's a little horseshoe and you come up and around the other side. But we're not using those for this project. For many other projects, I will use them for sure. So let's see. So I'm going to now look, and because I have done my original one already, all I need to do is kind of color block out where I want it to be. But if this was my first one, I would probably take about 1 inch of seed beads, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And then this is where I kind of do whatever feels right. So I'm going to put one more orange here. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, I like kind of having a gradual color change. And you can see, let me just pick this up for a quick second, that each one is a little bit different. And if you look at it up close and kind of count it out, sure, you could do that, but from far away, it really just kind of looks like a nice color blend from one color into the other. So I kind of do whatever feels right. So I'm going to pick up one turquoise, one orange, another turquoise, and then I'm thinking I'm probably just going to continue along with my turquoise until I get to the silver. Now, again, if you want to do two colors, you can do two colors. This one is done in just two colors. I thought it was a little small proportionally with the ring, but you might not think that. You might think that that's actually perfect, that you really like how it's more even rather than the fringe being a little bit longer. Okay, so now we're on turquoise. So now I'm going to pick up some turquoise, and you can see why it's kind of easy, especially when I'm demonstrating, to have my beads laid out by which color comes next. All right, so now I'm just going to pick up a couple of these turquoise beads now. And I'll just lay them against the other ones. And again, if this was my first one, I would measure it out and just kind of decide about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. This is one of those projects that once you learn the technique and once you kind of have you get into the zone, it becomes very meditative, which I really like. And you could even go back now to orange. You know, you can go back to your first color and color block it that way. There's no reason why it has to change 3 different colors. You could go back to the beginning, or you know what? You could do all one color. You could do a bead soup, which is always fun. I love a bead soup, and just pick up beads at random. But I don't know how you guys are, but I'm never very good at picking up beads at random. I'm much happier doing a pattern. So I just picked up one of those little teeny tiny, come on, focus, those little teeny tiny size 1 crimp tubes. And I'm now going to pick up 3. And I've decided my picot, my little friends here down at the bottom, are going to be turquoise. Over here, I also did turquoise, but turquoise was my first color. So again, just a million different possibilities, different colorways, different inspirations that you can choose. But I decided to go back to turquoise because I like orange, but not that much. So now I'm creating what is called a picot. And all a picot is a little, it's a little picot. I don't know how else to say it. A little turn of beads. So I think that you could probably do 5 if you wanted to do 5. An odd number is best though, because then you can always have that one that kind of pokes out at the end. Unless I guess you don't want one that pokes off at the end. So that's again, totally up to you. I am here to show you the technique and inspire you to try it on your own. Okay, so now I have these 3 beads here, and I'm going to skip those 3 beads, and I'm going to take my wire back through that size 1 crimp tube, and then if I can even get it through that size 1 crimp tube, and then if I can, I'm going to go through a couple of these size 11 seed beads. Doesn't matter. You can do 4, you can do 6, you can do 2. It just helps to get everything tightened up and straightened up. Okay, so I like to just kind of fiddle with my picot a little bit, and you do not need, again, the as much wiggle room as you might build into a bracelet, for example, because this is just a line of beads, right? There's no need for it to curve around anything, but you don't want it to be so tight that it is too stiff, because again, just in thinking about our materials and the physics and the construction of everything, you don't want to have so much pressure on these things, because eventually, with too much pressure, we all snap, right? We've all been under a lot of pressure these days. Has anybody snapped so far? Okay, so once again, I'm going to come in here and do that 3-step crimp process. So in the front of my crimping pliers, in the back of my crimping pliers, and then again in the front of the crimping pliers. And once again, I will allow, if this part is really just a challenge and a half for you to using these micro crimpers, I will allow a little smashing of the crimp. I say it quietly. We'll just keep that between us. And then we're going to come in here and snip this guy off and knock the camera with our hands. Apologies. And then really that is it for that. If you don't want the picot look here, if you just want it to be a line of beads, you would just then do crimp tube, one bead, and then back around and through. So again, I am using beading wire. I'm using 7-strand 012 beading wire for this with crimp tube. This is just one way of making this design. I have made it other ways too. I've made it with stringy material. I've made it with all with different stitching as well. But different people like using different materials, and different people like different ways of doing things. So this is a fun way of showing how to do this particular project. So now we have a couple of decisions to make after we have done that as many times as you want. So here I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 strands, and I prefer an odd. Okay, let's start that sentence again. I prefer an odd number. In almost all designing that I do, I think an odd number looks the best. So this is 9. This is what 9 looks like here. I believe this one is 11. Let's just double check that really, really quickly. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep, this one is 11. So it's a little bit more fringy. Let's see, I think this one might be 7, 2, 4, 6. Now this one is 8. Okay, so a different look. And can you really tell that it's an even number rather than an odd number? Not really. I might have just lost steam on that. I might have, I don't know, who knows why one became one number and one became another number. But let's go ahead and add our ear wire, because I want to talk about that process a little bit. And then as I was making this example today, I thought to myself, you know what actually would be another great way of finishing this off is to add a crimp cover over that crimp tube that we did. In the final analysis, if it's an earring, if it's dangling from my ear, is it really going to make that big of a difference? I don't know. We're going to find out, because it's one of those things that one of those what ifs. What if I add a crimp cover? What would happen? So we're going to do that together. I haven't done this yet. So I was just kind of playing around and thinking before class today, how could we next level this? How can we take this design a little bit to the next level? So what I'm using is the smallest. It's the 3mm crimp cover from the crimp cover variety pack, which is available at your local Michaels and online at michaels.com. You like how I did that? And so all I'm doing is I'm just slipping that crimp cover over. And there are 2 different ways that I like to close crimp covers. Of course, the easiest is just using a simple chain nose pliers. These are the sparkle handle pliers. They're among my favorite tools to use. They just fit my hands really perfectly. And you just kind of come here and very gently, with small incremental movements, zhuzh that crimp cover closed over that crimp tube. And the smaller and more precise you are, the less likely that you will destroy the shape, speaking from experience, of that crimp cover. So I think that that might look awesome up at top, and you could even do it down at the bottom as well. Although I think that the ones at the bottom kind of blend better into those, into that picot. All right, so let me show you the other way that I like to close a crimp cover. Let me just grab another one here. And in this set, there are 3mm crimp covers, which are perfect for these little crimp tubes. There are also 4mm crimp covers in smooth, in a I think we call it lines, and then in sparkle, which if you know me, you know the sparkle is my favorite. And sometimes these pesky little guys don't want to go on. So we just take some patience and work that on, and eventually it will work. Okay, so the second way that I like to close crimp covers is using the mighty crimper. So you know there are 3 different crimpers. There's the micro, the mighty, and then the regular crimper. And I'm just going to bop this up just a little bit because we are at the point in class that I keep hitting it. So I apologize. And I'm not going to use the back notch that has the little dimple in it. I'm just using the smooth notch in the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here very gently and do that in frame and just close that on up. And there we go. So it kind of depends on what tool perhaps I have at the ready. And you can also see with this, I'm going around and around and around. I'm not just doing it once and kind of hoping for the best that everything closed up really nicely. I'm zhuzhing it around and around and around so that it finishes up really nicely. And I'm glad that I did that what if, because I really like how that looks with the crimp covers. And indeed, if I were using a little bit of a thinner ring, I might use wire guardians and crimp covers also. Now, fun fact, on the back of this ring with the flowers is leaves. And so I had a trouble this morning. I couldn't figure out whether or not I wanted my leaves to be the front or if I wanted the flowers to be the front. So you can switch that out depending on your mood, I suppose. But before we do that, we need to put on an ear wire to begin with. So to do that, what I do is I always go for my trusty Findings variety pack, which is a Beadalon product, of course, available at Michael's. And I am realizing and remembering that I did not put out extra ear wires. So I'm just going to take this one off really quickly. And we are going to pretend like it was there all along. I could have done that and nobody would have known, but I think it's more fun to know what's happening behind the scenes. So in this variety pack, there are a bunch of different things. There are lobster claws, there's spring rings, there's a whole bunch of different sizes of jump ring. I think 3 different sizes of jump ring. So I'm taking the smallest jump ring. You can see I grabbed that with my pliers, which makes it very easy to grab rather than trying to get my fingers in there. And then the other thing that I'm actually going to grab that I decided this morning I would make for a really neat design is one of these tags. And I feel like tags don't get nearly the amount of respect, love, and attention that they deserve. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually using this tag as part of my design for putting this all together. Not only design, but also construction. So one of the important things that you need to think about when you are working with rings is the direction that ring is. So you can see this ring is this way. This ring is this way. So you need actually 2 different joins in order to get this earring to lay so that the ring is facing forward. If you wanted it facing to the side, so it was more like a hoop on the side, which would also be a really, really fun design, then you wouldn't need that extra component to change the direction. It's just one of those things that it's really mostly when you're adding pendants or making earrings that you really have to think about. There we go. My arm is a little off. Let's try to move that back and that down. Maybe I can stop banging it so many times. Okay, so all we need to do now is use, and this is where those two chain nose pliers are always necessary, is opening up that jump ring. And the small one fits, actually, I'm going to pick up my tag first. The small one fits just about perfectly over that ring. You might have to open it up a little bit more. I definitely have to open it up a little bit more. And I mentioned before that this class, as well as all past classes from all Michaels Makers, are available on the Michaels YouTube channel. So if you are watching live, we will be available, the class will be available in about 24 to 48 hours. But definitely feel free to go back and watch lots of past classes. Now, you can see here that the jump ring that I chose is too small. And I know that because there isn't enough kind of wiggle room here. Just trying to get that really in focus so you can see what's going on. This needs to hang freely. So luckily, there are different sizes of jump rings in the variety pack. So I take back my initial suggestion to use the smallest one. We are going to go with the next smallest one. So let's see, I'm just kind of going through here and looking for the next smallest one. I'm going to open that jump ring up the exact same way. So holding it on with one plier and bending it in a twisting motion. I'm going to pick up that tag. And again, you could do this with another smaller jump ring. I just thought that the tag gave it just a little something extra. And you'll see when I have two different examples, so you can be the judge of which one you like better. And so then with the ear wire, I'm going to do that same motion. You never want to bend the loop out of place. You just want to gently open it toward you. And I'm going to attach the top of that tag to the ear wire. Okay, and so it just, I don't know, it just gives that little extra something that you might not have expected. So sure, you could do an extra jump ring, and let me show you on, is this the one that has the jump ring? I think it is. Nope, that's one that has a tag. Here's one that has a jump ring. Okay, so we can see the difference here. So this one has a jump ring connecting it, right, like that. And this one has the tag connecting it. Hold on, let me get that untangled so you can really see what's going on. So it's just, again, it's just like one of those little things that just makes it look just a little more finished, a little more, I don't know, what word would you use? A little more professional, I would think, right? Anybody can use a jump ring, but if you're using a little tag to do that, super fun, right? Okay, so I think that is going to do it for me for class today. We learned a lot of things. We covered a lot of information. We talked about wire. We talked about diameters. We talked about crimp tube size covers. And if you think about just a simple fringe earring making class, we really did cover a lot of information about all different kinds of jewelry making, and also probably learned that Meredith cannot put earrings in without a mirror. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that is a pretty bold earring, right? But one of the things that I've really noticed these days is that people are wearing bold earrings. And why are people wearing bold earrings? Well, for exactly what we are doing right now. We are having a Zoom meeting, and I usually do have a choker necklace on as well, because we don't have anything from here down that we can kind of express ourselves with, right? So a really bold, really fun pair of earrings really dresses up perhaps an otherwise drab drab meeting. So yes, thank you. I'm really enthusiastic about that color way. Also, again, like I said, orange and turquoise, but especially orange is not necessarily a color that I would gravitate toward. But I've been going outside of my comfort zone on colors and on color palettes recently, and it's really helped with my designing. And Sandy has also mentioned that that would be a really cool pendant. So we'll just pretend that it's not a choker pendant, that it's a pendant. But I agree. I actually almost like it better as a pendant, especially because I've only made one today. So that would be a great thing too. And all you would need to turn that into a necklace is a piece of cording, or you could actually, I mean, the possibilities of putting it onto a chain or a cord or a beaded piece are really really limitless. You could use leather, you could do a macrame. Oh my gosh, so many different things. Maybe that will be a class in the future, how to hang pendants and turn them into jewelry. It might already be a class that we have in the back of our mind. So play around with the design. There are a lot of different effects that you can achieve, whether your dangles are stiffer, whether they are drapier, whether they hang down, whether they splay out a little bit, which that effect might be achieved if you did add crimp covers on all of them. Play around with color, play around with length, and please be sure when you do make designs for with this pattern, post them on the socials. Do a hashtag of Make It With Michaels, of course, because this is a wonderful Michaels class, but also please tag Make It With Beadalon, because I am Meredith Roddy and I am from Beadalon, and we love seeing what you make as well. If you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram at Meredith Joy Designs. Yeah, at Meredith Joy Designs, that's what it is. And then also, of course, follow Beadalon and Michaels for all different kinds of inspiration. Our classes for Beadalon for Michaels are generally at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays, and sometimes if you if you're lucky, at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Saturdays with Sarah Ellis as well. So thank you everybody so very much for participating today. I had a blast. I learned a couple of things in just kind of saying, what if I do this? What if I add crimp covers? What if I try it a different way? And I will see you again next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And until then, happy beading.